I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up politics. Unearthed yearbook photos show anti-trans Georgia Republicans dressed in drag as teens. According to reporting by The Advocate, U.S. Representatives Buddy Carter and Mike Collins, both outspoken critics of transgender rights, appear in archival yearbooks from the 1970s and 80s wearing dresses and wigs. The images were verified using names, schools, graduation details. The revelations come as Carter and Collins compete in a Republican primary to challenge Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff, who's an LGBTQ plus ally. The voting will take place on May 19th. Critics say the images highlight the contradiction between the lawmakers' past behavior and their current political positions. Both have supported legislation restricting transgender rights, including measures targeting gender-affirming care and transgender participation in sports. In response to these photos, Collins' communications director said the photo reflected, quote, lighthearted humor, end quote, while Carter's office declined to confirm or deny the images. As one GLAAD spokesperson noted in The Advocate, quote, it's a no-brainer that anyone who participates in this part of the LGBTQ culture should support basic protections for LGBTQ people. Anything less is hypocrisy, end quote. Well, there's a lot to be said about that. You know, we look going back, George Santos, we look at the famous or infamous video with Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump wooing her. I mean, you know, and there's many more.
And the representative in the wheelchair who was caught wearing women's lingerie, medicine, whatever his name is.
Look, as someone who grew up in the South in the 90s, yes, even into the 90s, anybody who was a person of sports in that era did what we called powder puff football. All the football players, basketball players, baseball players, and the like dressed in cheerleader outfits, and the girls dressed in football outfits and played football. So the fact is, I am sure you can find pictures of pretty much anybody who is from the South in some sort of female regalia. Unfortunately, these people, while they are doing it, the story says, participating in the LGBT culture, they're not doing it that way. They're doing it in tongue-in-cheek fun by making fun of women. Because if you've ever been to one of those events, which I had been to several, because again, I grew up in the South, they are not out there being ladylike. They are out there making a fool of themselves. So even their actions back then were not anything to be, respectful of the women. They were making fun of them. Because those same people were making fun of me for being gay, even though I wasn't out.
No, I appreciate you noticing how the GLAAD called it like LGBTQ culture. And I'm like, GLAAD, sometimes less is better. Sometimes less is better. Like, one, I agree on the sense of like, kids, especially high school kids, they dress up and play costume, and that's not the same thing. But at the same time, if you want to say like, well, would you be violating these new drag ban rules? That's fair, because the way they're written is so arbitrarily like, well, if you wear a couple items of the other gender, we're talking about like pre-Stonewall level crazy. Like, that's fair to like hit them on that, but to claim it's the LGBTQ culture, like it's just kids being either fun or offensive depending on how they were doing. But like gender switching and like playing dress up, I think is a good, healthy thing. And I wish that maybe GLAAD had led more on that and said, you allowed this for yourself, but you're not going to allow it for the next generation. And that I think would have been a stronger narrative.
But the problem is that requires nuance. And
you think GLAAD is incapable of nuance?
No, I don't think. I think GLAAD is.
I mean, I might be saying that.
I think GLAAD is capable of nuance, but the general consumer of the media are not. They all see just a boys in dresses, caught in picture, equals hypocrisy. That's easy to sell. That's much harder to sell. It's like, oh, you have done it before, but now you're disrespecting the LGBTQ culture by doing so and so and so.
I not to take up the whole conversation, but like, I disagree on the public can't handle nuances. If the public can handle making 1-hour thought pieces on YouTube about the whole complex narrative of Game of Thrones or the Star Wars or whatever it is, they can handle the basic nuance of boys in dresses versus what's happening to trans people and drag queens.
And well, let's talk about drag queens. I mean, and trans people and how they are. I mean, these people. I mean, I always say, I think it would be true to say that I'll rather have 10 straight allies than one anti-gay man who's in the closet. Because they always, these people who participate in the culture, and I'm not talking about these two, I'm talking about in general, LGBTQ people who participate in the culture and yet actively advocate against us in public while doing crap in private, like certain Carolina senator, are particularly harmful to us because of the not just rank hypocrisy on their part, but they know what the weaknesses are, and they're trying to stick it to us.
You know what? One last note on all this. There's one other thing we can also know. Looking at the polls, neither of these two are going to be a U.S. senator.
Right. And I'd like to reiterate, just because you find a picture of somebody who dressed up in an outfit when they were young doesn't mean that at that time they were an ally. It doesn't mean at the time that they weren't making fun of people. It doesn't mean at the time that they weren't homophobic or throwing kids into trash cans because they thought they were gay. It literally just means that they were dressing up, thought they were funny, thought they were cute, and got caught on camera. So let's, not make the blanket statement, well, you dressed up as a woman in drag before, why are you doing this to LGBTQ people? It's because they probably were that way
already
all along. People just don't switch in the middle of a midlife crisis to become homophobic all of a sudden.
So, can I say one last thing? I just want to give kudos to the Advocate for doing the investigative research to find this stuff. And I also thought it was really shady that they called high school photos archival footage. That was so shady. I love you, Advocate.
Making me feel old, for sure. Ancient. Well, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.